Game day.
Oh, you gonna take me speaking down there?
I got one. How you wear both towels?
Collegiate. You don't have to far.
That's that.
I was gonna say, ask you if you saw Tebow score that touchdown on Sunday. I did. Third string team. Hey, I don't care what it is. I just love seeing it because it's just fun.
You win.
He did.
You can make it. Hey. You can do it. Can I do it? I'm going to 5 miles. Good afternoon. We want to welcome y'all to the Mount Table Experience. I mean, to I gotta start y'all off laughing today. So here we go. I'm glad to see all of you here. This is the largest attended meeting that we've had thus far. To the Commissioners Mary Lawson Brown, Rufus Boardman, Justin Campbell, and James Norwood Jr., you're hereby notified that a special meeting of the Palatka City Commission is called to be held on Tuesday, August 18, 2015 at our regular meeting place of the Palatka City Commission, Palatka City Hall, 201 North 2nd Street, Palatka, Florida, to commence at 6 p.m. The purpose of the meeting is to consider adoption of the items on the consent agenda and to consider adoption of the following fire assessment resolution tabled during the regular session on August 6, 2015. Annual assessment resolution adopt. Part B was a note resolution adopt. Terrell Hill, Mayor, and we acknowledge the signatures of all the other commissioners. So we will call this meeting to order, and we will have our invocation. We're going to ask Vice Mayor Brown to give us our invocation today.
Dear most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for all Thy many blessings. May we always learn to be tolerant and understanding and to take care of people. Guide us and lead us in our decisions that we make, and may they be done for the benefit of the most people that we can take care of. Bless us all for all things we do for ourselves and others. Amen.
Amen. Join me in the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
How nice was that?
Roll call, please.
Mary Hill,
Here.
Vice Mayor Brown,
Present.
Commissioner Borum,
Present.
Commissioner Campbell,
Present.
Commissioner Norwood.
Present.
All members are present and counted to order.
Thank you. Item 1 on the agenda is public recognition and presentations. We don't have any items of public recognition at this time, so we'll move to item 2 on the agenda, which is public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment? If you filled out a speaker's card for a specific item, you don't have to speak now. You can wait until that item comes up. Anyone wishing to speak during public comment, you will have 3 minutes to speak. At that time, no action will be taken on that topic of discussion, and we will proceed forward. So is there anyone here to speak during public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. We'll move on to item number 3 on the agenda, the consent agenda. This is adopt a resolution number 2015-11-58 authorizing the issuance of special events permit number 1530 for the 3rd annual Gem City Shrimp Blast, setting forth provisions of the permit, granting permission to exceed allowable noise levels, authorizing the closure of certain streets to vehicular traffic during the event, and setting advance and other permit fees. Commissioner,
Second.
there's a motion, a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, question's been called. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to our public hearing section. Item number 4 on the agenda is fire assessment fee. Item A is the annual assessment resolution.
A resolution of the City Commission of Palatka, Florida relating to the availability and funding of fire protection and related essential services within the city, providing for the imposition of special assessments within the city to fund in part the services, facilities, and programs associated with the continual readiness to provide fire protection, identifying benefits, burdens, and costs to be assessed, establishing the method of apportioning benefits, burdens, and costs among specially benefited property, adopting an assessment roll, providing the method of collection, providing for associated policy direction, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
There's a motion on the floor and a second. We'll now open the floor for public hearing. For public hearing, we have Dan Phillips. As you approach, you have 3 minutes to speak. Can you please use your 3 minutes? Give your name and address so that we'll have it for the record as well.
Dan Phillips, 109 Karen Court, here in Palatka. Growing up, there were a couple of times that I wondered why my dad made a decision or said something. Finally, I got up enough courage to ask him why. Daddy said, anytime a man can approach another man as gentlemen, there should be nothing they cannot discuss. Mrs. Brown, several times when we've had meetings here regarding some issues that some of our churches disagreed with, you invited us to participate to help the city commission to find solutions, whatever they may be. As a gentleman to a lady and the other gentleman on the city commission, I have a lot of why questions. I cannot understand how we can propose or see the goal to lower a tax millage from just over 9 to just under 7, because that's going to attract businesses, but then we want to enact an assessment at 2.5%, almost 2.5%, so anybody coming in will still be faced with the same financial cost to come in, but it'll be 2 payments instead of 1. And I'm perplexed. I cannot understand that. This fire assessment has been equated to 60% of the fire department's budget. I do not think we are 60% undermanned. I don't believe we are 60% under-equipped, or it would be more on the front page than anything we've talked about recently. I don't understand. I need your help to understand. If this measure passes, if this assessment passes, people in our churches will have to help their churches pay this bill, pay this assessment with what I understand is called discretionary income. After they pay all of their other bills, then whatever is left over and they want to support their local church, now there is going to be an additional bill to other churches. And as I've heard many pastors mention, this proposed assessment will be many times over any other single bill we have as a church, save maybe a mortgage payment. I ask, please,
Time's up.
not to listen. I'm sorry, is that the 3 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I will. Just so that you guys know, so that we can keep the decorum of a meeting and not of a rally, we would ask everyone to refrain from clapping during the process so that we can continue on for the sake of time. Asa Greer I hope I'm not butchering your name.
You did real well.
My name is Asa Greer. I am Executive Director of St. John's River Baptist Association that comprises of 52 Southern Baptist churches in 3 counties, Flagler, St. John's, and Palatka, of which our office is in the city of Palatka at 707 Laurel Street. And I have come to share with you some real statistics of how we, as a group of churches, not only just in the city of Palatka, but in the county of Putnam County and St. Johns County, and also Flagler County, help the citizens of this great city. First of all, we have a budget of over $2,000 where we help the pastors in case they get in trouble with their mortgages, which they do sometimes, or they have trouble with their needs for health insurance or those kind of things, and we help them with that kind of opportunities. We also support the Women's Resource Center here in the city. We support a Good Samaritan prescription program that helps homeless who don't have the money to buy simple prescriptions. We work with Good Samaritan Medical Clinic in St. John's to help people that are there that can't come to have medical help. We are involved in the Christian Service Center here in Palatka, giving them money so they can help the citizens. We are involved in the work of South Putnam in a number of ways there because of the ease to work down there in Crescent City in the area. We are able to even support a free medical clinic there. We have done numerous things to help our youth, to help them go to school by providing scholarships for students from our city that want to go to seminary and want to study the Bible, and we are providing over $4,000 for them this year. We have also sent many of our students and young people on mission trips around the world, including Nicaragua, Tanzania, Sri Lanka, Belarus, Romania, and we have a couple of our citizens one that's ready to serve in an undisclosed area sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ, and we're helping them. We provided the summer missionary for our churches. We provide this much money, and when the tax is given, the fire assessment is given, we will see a reduction in over $2,000 of our budget. And that will take away from the help that we give. Thanksgiving, we give over 500 turkeys free to our churches to distribute in the community, of which over 200 have been distributed here in the city of Palatka. This is a tax on churches that are helping people. And I want you to remember that.
Thank you. Paul Smith.
Hey there, my name is Paul Smith of 903 Kirby Street. Just got a couple of questions, and the millage for the fire assessment tax, whatever you want to call it, is 2.46 mils. I was wondering, Mr. Lawson, I believe, he has done a few of these around. Has there ever been any other counties or cities that have had that high of a millage rating? It seems to be pretty exorbitant. And another, I guess, a comment, is I don't think this is going to give you what you want. I don't think it's going to be what you're after. And so just to, comment there. And to the churches, I feel like I'm reading out of Revelation. I would invite you, whatever the outcome is for this one here, stick around for the item 5, if you would.
Thank you. Ms. Kitchens.
Alicia Kitchens, 1027 South 12th Street, Palatka, Florida.
You can start talking. I don't start until you get to the podium. Hold up.
Previously you did. So, Jesus said in Matthew 26, 42, 45, "For I was hungry and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me nothing to drink. I needed clothes and you did not clothe me. Whatever you did not do for the least of these, you did not do for me. You are already going to do it to the least of these, the Palatka citizens, with a fire service fee. Please do not take away the ability of the churches and other nonprofits to do for the least of these, your Palatka citizens. I am pleading with you to put wording into your annual assessment resolution tonight that will exclude the churches and all nonprofits from the fire service fee. These churches and other nonprofits currently help your financially distressed citizens with food, clothing, utility payments, medical needs, and housing costs. These nonprofits, including the churches, are all hurting for funds due to the large number of citizens who need help today because of the downturned economy. When these fire service assessment bills go out, there will be even more residents who will be going to the nonprofits for help. The least you can do is not impose a fire service fee on the very organizations that will be needed to help your citizens with this additional financial burden. Please show some degree of mercy and compassion for the citizens of Palatka and do not impose this fire service fee on the churches and other nonprofit organizations that give to help the least of these. I would further ask you to vote no on this annual assessment resolution tonight. Then sometime between now and next year, hold your public forums, brainstorm with the public. We can find ways for you to find money. Vote no tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Carrera. Roberta Carrera.
Roberta Correa, 118 Dodge Street. Nobody likes additional taxes, least of all me. We have property that will end up paying the bulk of some of this, one of the highest residential taxes properties that I do own combined. Initially, I was okay with the fire tax fee. I am willing to pay for my services. I think we all have to be fair about this. This is more than me. It's about the city of Palaka's survival and progress. So I think we need to consider that if we want our city to be successful. However, unless we do it right, if we start exempting different groups, this is going to fail. So it's either all or nothing, in my opinion, and that's all I want to say. I'm in favor of it if we do it right.
Thank you. Thank you. Neil Chansey.
Neil Chansey, 2615 Lane Street, Palatka.
Do me a favor, can you wait till you get to the mic and say it again so we get on the record?
Okay. Neil Chansey, 2615 Lane Street, Palatka. Mrs. Riggers has given you copies. I'm speaking for Kirby Kennedy, Dr. Kirby Kennedy, pastor of First Baptist Church. And he has modified some by text, but I will give you the highlights of his proposal. Honorable Mayor and City Commissioners, I would ask you to amend the proposal today to exempt both churches and nonprofits from the fire assessment fee for the 3 reasons I addressed last meeting. Number 1, the very people who live in the city and voluntarily contribute to the church will be taxed a second time, double taxation, on the charitable gifts they give. If they are business owners, they are being taxed 3 times. The cost of First Baptist Church alone is $10,325.92 annually. If churches and nonprofits are not exempt from the ministry, money will go from programs ministering to the community currently, yet the city has pleaded with the churches to get more involved with the needs of the community. This will hinder our ability to do so. Number 3, and last, we understand that the fire fee will lower the millage rate. We commend you on that. Churches and nonprofits do not pay the millage and therefore would not benefit us or offset the cost in any way. In conclusion, and I might have time to ask a few questions, Dr. Kennedy said, while we would encourage you to exempt churches and nonprofits, we want the commission to know that regardless of the outcome of the vote tonight, First Baptist Church Palatka is committed to continuing to invest in downtown, our community, and continue to partner with the city to meet the needs of our city and county as we have for the last 145 years. So I ask you, what is the value of a soul? I know. Thank you.
I take it that was a rhetorical question. Next person, Callie Walsh.
Hi, I'm Callie Walls. Most people know me as Risa. I live currently 107 Ferdinand Avenue in St. Augustine. However, I'm a fifth-generation Putnam County girl, and I'm here every weekend either visiting my folks or working on properties. About 11 years ago, I read minutes from a commissioners meeting, and they stated that there was an urgent need for single-family rental houses in Palatka. It went on to say the rental market here had many trailers and mobile home parks, apartments, and multifamily housing, and there were many properties in distress. I created a website called You Make It a Home, and my mission statement continues to reflect my purpose. I truly want to provide nice, clean, affordable, single-family houses, a better place to live for many folks, a better place for their children to grow up, a better place that they would want to call home. I feel good about the majority of my tenants I've had over the years. Most of the folks are really good, hard-working people. I have tenants who have lived with me in my houses for 9 years. 8 of my tenants have been there for over 6. Here's the kicker: I've never raised their rent. Many of them are single moms and grandmothers, and even a small increase would send them out looking for a place that they could better afford, either an apartment or trailer or back into public housing. The last 5 years have proven to be trying financially. I'm a single woman. I work a full-time plus job along with managing 15 single-family rental properties. Each property has a mortgage, taxes, insurance, and expenses. I've become my own housing authority in a sense, as it's come to the point where I subsidize their housing so as not to force their families from the homes they have, and they've come to appreciate. Last year, I paid nearly $27,000 in taxes. Now with this new assessment, we're going to be looking at another $200 a month for me, bringing it up over $29,000, excuse me, on this. I will not be able to continue providing the service I do for our community much longer while we continue to see, I see a 24 to 63% increase in my real estate taxes in the last 2 years. I'm being rent out of my own sweet hometown. Your decisions here, and not just the now but in the future, determine if I will be able to look, if I have to look a single mom in the face and tell her I either need to increase her rent by $50 a month or she'll need to start looking for a new place for her children to live. My dear commissioners, I pay taxes and I pay them on time. Is there another possible solution rather than assessment such as this? I did read the city millage rate may decrease to this, due to this assessment. May decrease? Could we be a little more precise? And folks, I'll end with this. It's the unspoken truth, but we all know it to be fact. We don't need new taxes. We need new taxpayers. People and businesses alike making money and paying their portion into our local economy. Thank you.
Don Hannah.
Don Hannah, 2020 Country Club Terrace, Palatka. I'm pastor at St. James United Methodist Church, 400 Reed Street. At our last meeting, we were looking at kind of an all or nothing. After the public comment time and after the presentation by Mr. Lawson, there was discussion of the possibility of churches being assessed and nonprofits at a level perhaps of 25%. I know that most of the people who have spoken on behalf of their churches or themselves tonight questioning this or asking for those organizations to be exempted. I speak only for myself. The church has not come to any kind of position on this, but I think it's good for us to have skin in the game. In the 1930s, we had a fire in our sanctuary that did significant damage. That was repaired now many years ago, and you can't tell we once had a fire in there. We want to have fire protection. We want to be a part of this community. I think a reduced rate, either by dropping the millage for everyone or by reducing the rate that churches pay by a percentage, would allow us to participate. That money's going to still come from people, as Pastor Kirby's letter indicated. Most of it's by people who are already living in the city, who are going to be contributing, so it will amount to them as double taxation or triple taxation if they have a business. But for me personally, as a pastor, we've been asked many times, I don't want us to always be coming here and saying nay, nay, nay. But I don't want y'all to be under the illusion that this is new money coming from somewhere else. It's still coming out of the pockets of people who are, by and large, residents. We do have county residents who come to our church and who contribute, and so we get a little bit of money out of county folk by doing this. But the reduced rate is something that has some appeal for me. And whichever way that's reduced, I could see myself being in favor of it. So just me. Thank you.
That was our last speaker card for item 4A. If there's anyone who hasn't had an opportunity to fill out a speaker card for item 4A, please bring it forward. You got time, Pastor. Carlos.
Ted Stackpole, 1 Putter Lane, here in Palatka, speaking on behalf of First Assembly of God. We actually annexed into the city probably about 10 years ago. Maybe a mistake now, I'm thinking. But, you know, I didn't make your workshops. I was out of town at the time. But I think the question on my mind is, what other options are there? Is this the easiest solution to fixing the problem? And if it's the easiest solution, then we're not working hard enough. We need to work harder to find a better solution to this than just going ahead and opting out to let the taxpayers bail out the situation the city's in. I realize that you guys didn't get into this situation overnight. This has been, you know, like years of moving into the financial situation you're in. But as already been spoken tonight, the city is not the only people that are bearing the burden of the economic problem in Palatka. Our church also has bared the burden of that. Many of our working class people have had to leave the city, move to other areas in order to find jobs. We're being affected and impacted every year. If I look at the last decade of pastoring the church, our income has gone down significantly, even though our congregation has not. And that's because of the payroll that has gone down. In fact, last year, 7 out of 9 members that joined our church in December alone were unemployed. And so the burden that we're going to bear by this is something significant for us. Over a 10-year period, we'll be spending over $40,000 that it's going to cost us for this, what are we calling it? Fire assessment. And so I asked that you'd reconsider that perhaps you could go back to the table, look at this again, work harder, and let's see if we can find a better solution than letting this fire assessment go forward. Thank you for your time.
Carl Flagg, 1700 Oak Street, Palatka, Florida. Senior pastor now Taylor First Baptist Church for the past 24 years. Also stand in the absence of Reverend Frederick Demps, Senior Pastor, Calvary Missionary Baptist Church. No pray, no pay, no play. When it's all said and done, the church is not here to cry broke or poor. We often say that the church is not paying their fair share. If I was to call the roll of ministries that the church provides, and when I say the church, I'm not talking about 4 walls, 6 walls, or 8 walls. I'm talking about the people that are making the difference in the lives of our citizens every day. Every church has the opportunity to reach out through in-reach and outreach. No single congregation can provide every type of outreach ministry, but in His wisdom, God has uniquely gifted each congregation with those gifts, and they excel in their respective ways. These people, these citizens, these churches are crucial, and they are really the foundation of the quality of living in our community. Churches ought to pay their fair share. The question is, what is the fair share? That is not been presented to us. The City Commission had a unanimous vote on first reading before they even had a workshop for us to understand with a consultant present. In my opinion, the consultant treated us as if he came from Metro to Mayberry to make his comment. I was very disappointed in the comments that were made. Everybody's struggling. People look at me and they say, well, look at Flagg. I work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I'm on call all the time. I don't apologize for working hard And then when I drive, when I choose to drive, I don't apologize for that either. In my closing, I want us to understand that it's the same crew. I'm paying as a citizen, I'm paying as an entrepreneur, we're paying as tithers in our churches, that is triple. Fellowship ministry, building ministry, education ministry, finance and stewardship ministry, grief care, bereavement support ministry, healthcare ministry, resource center ministry, media ministry, local and world missions ministry, music ministry, choir ministry, new members intake and orientation, nursery, hospital chaplains, nursing home ministry, hospice ministry, home visitation ministries, missionary ministry, praise dance ministry, food pantry, soup kitchen ministry, clothes closet ministry, homeless ministry, Sunday school ministry, drama ministry, usher ministry, men's ministry, women's ministry, prayer and meditation ministry, youth and children's ministry, young adult ministry, senior adult ministry, jail, correctional institute, re-entry, post-incarceration ministry, evangelism ministry, outreach ministry, military ministry, disability ministry, fine arts, cultural arts ministry, after-school ministry, workplace and job training ministry. We're in this together. We're partners with the city.
Is anyone else for public comment?
Carl, you want me to finish reading yours, sir? Lord, what a list you have. Afternoon, or ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kenny Eubanks. I live at 141 Ranch Road, East Palatka, representing one of the patrons at First Baptist Church of Palatka. I just got a question for you. If not reduced rate, who are exempt from your fire assessment? Are county governments exempt? Is the courthouse exempt? Is the school board exempt? It costs just as much to put their fire out as it does the church or fire church. Just asking the question. I know you're not going to answer me. Just give it some thought. If you're not going to reduce rates, then treat everybody the same, including them.
Okay, Kenny, I'll answer you that. Everybody needs skin in the game, and
I don't have a problem with it.
all right, everybody
But if
needs
you're going
skin
to
in
do
the
me,
game.
do them all.
That's it. That's the way I feel too.
You know, I pay I don't pay taxes in your city. I do indirectly with my church, with my tithes that put on these ministries that these ministers have told you about. We all have our own ministries that we want to do. I don't want to reduce it. I understand where you're at. I was a commissioner at one time, and I understand an assessment. It's the fairest tax you can put on people. But the problem I have with it in government in general, they wait till so long that there's such a gap that it takes something like this to shorten that gap, and it's no fault of y'all's. This thing has been going on for 30 years. It's just that it's time that we need to nip it and start nailing at that thing. That's how you eat an elephant, one little piece at a time.
Anyone else here for public comment? Fill out a card for me.
No, I didn't fill out.
If you can fill out one for me, I'll let you speak. Can you go ahead and get one for me? I'll give you an opportunity to speak.
I forgot to give you, figuring all the excitement.
You owe me like 2 minutes.
I know it.
Ray
Skarbowski, 105 West St. John's Terrace, East Palatka, 32131. But I was here, I moved from Cape Coral, Florida. My grandson was born blind. He can now see. And guess what? He's going to the school, and his heart's being touched by miracle by the Almighty God. I was in here for my first meeting because I wanted to get involved with city council. Because I do window tinting, but I'm telling them the prices I normally get, and people ask if I had financing. And this is not good for the city of Palaca as far as the income. I didn't know this was the lowest city. But Mrs. Sheila McCoy, I came here, the lady was a lady of God. And I know you gentlemen remember this. She said, may the Holy Spirit fall fresh on you. May you all have wisdom to be able to know how to approach the people, giving Jesus Christ the glory, credit, and honor. It's by no instance that these are church people, but people of the church of Little Faith. Picture this place booming. Your church is growing, you got to expand. You want fire protection, there, come and get it. If you can give it to them, and they'll pay it. But what Sheila McCoy said, if we're not Palaca, filled with the Holy Spirit, under God and Jesus Christ, we're not going to move forward.
Anyone else have public comment? Public hearing. We'll now close public hearing. Any discussion?
Well, I guess let me start by, repeating. Well, let me start by amending. I like to amend the motion to include the exemption for section 306, item A, which includes nonprofits and 501c3s.
What section is that?
Page 19, and that's section 306, item A.
So the motion is to adopt the resolution and to exclude institutional?
Exclude or
Exclude. You want to exclude all the, you want to exclude all the listed institutional nonprofits? I need a response from the second.
I'll second for purpose of conversation.
Commissioner Brown, didn't you make the first motion? Well, it wouldn't be your amendment. It wouldn't be your amendment. The motion was made by Commissioner Brown. If Commissioner Brown wants to modify her motion, she can do so.
I don't.
So your motion is not on the floor at this time. Okay, that motion is not on the floor. The motion was made by Commissioner Brown and seconded. So the original motion was to adopt the resolution. Commissioner Norwood's motion is not the motion that we're currently on the floor for. And there was a second on that motion. We are in discussion. And so your motion is to adopt the resolution as written?
Yes.
There's a motion to adopt the resolution as written. Is there any discussion?
Yes. Mr. Mayor, I understand that we want to adopt the fire service fee. I understand that. I understand the situation that the churches, that the city is in as well. But I just believe the very people that we are asking do through third party, I think that those are the very people that support the fabric of our community. I think they end up providing for needs that the city doesn't provide for, nor does individuals. They come together and collaborate and bring their resources together in order to meet the needs of this community. And that's not, and we often talk about churches, but also I have to add that, along with that, to all nonprofits. The reason why they exempt and they get a 501c3 is because of the charitable works that they do within the community as well. So I stand firm on asking that we exempt section 306, Item A.
Any other discussion?
I have something to say. I know you all are upset that I made that motion, but I did it for a reason. I think everybody, like, I said, I know some of you all are upset because I made the motion, but I want you to understand that everybody needs some skin in this game. This town is in dire straits, and a few people who pay taxes, that's the way we take care of the city, have carried the back of the brunt of the expenses on their backs. If everybody pays something, then everybody has services. We have taken care of people for years and years. And I have 3 parcels of property that I'm gonna have to scramble to do it for. It's not like I'm doing something to somebody else that is not being done to me. I think that the government properties and the school board and everybody who gets fire service needs to participate in what we do. I think that only a few people that pay all of their taxes, and some of them get exemptions. I think if we're going to look at it, we have people who can afford to do it. There are some talk to people at my house, on the phone, in the grocery store, everywhere people could meet me on the street. And we asked if there were other ways you could come up to make these changes. You tell us and we look at them. And we tried to do that. I have spent nights because I feel guilty. I know that we need to take care of everybody. If we work together, God will take care of us if we take care of the people. And this is the way to help take care of other people in this city. We don't have money to keep this city running. The money that runs our government comes from taxes, fees, and if we don't get that money in, we don't have any way to operate. Do you want the city not to, if you get a fire, do you not want a fire truck? Or do you want a faucet not to work, or what they call the things, the fire hydrant not to work? It's also being where we can switch monies around and help take care of other needs. We fuss about rusty water. We're trying to make a way that everybody can get some benefits from what goes on. In this room, mainly are people from the churches. There are business people who don't want to come in here because they feel like if they speak up, y'all gonna stop going to them to buy stuff. So they'll call us and we have to listen to what people say. There are a lot of people who don't want to come in here because they're afraid to speak in front of people. But they talk to us before we get in here. So you all are like the only people that are appealing to us to do the right thing.
Any other comments from the commission? I've got a comment, and I'll make mine clear. I've had an opportunity to look at, Commissioner, the annual reports over the last 15 years for this community, and to sit up here and listen to some of the state of affairs of this community for several years, having sat on different redevelopment committees and other things. And numbers are constant. $28 million to repair 65 miles of water lines as old as 1887. $1.5 million to replace a wastewater treatment plant that's 10 years past its relative life. We've constantly kicked the proverbial can trying to waste time to deal with the inevitable. It's happened over decades. We've heard that said several different times. In 2001, our millage rate was 6.9. Today it's 9.174. The answer that we've had from past leadership, past commissions, has been to consistently raise the millage rate, to raise your water fees in order to make things work. The fire assessment fee gives us an opportunity to immediately lower your millage rate, to provide an assessment that will allow us to go from an increase the first year to a substantial decrease in all years subsequent based upon the way that it works. We've spoken to people from different communities and the effect that it has. Everybody keeps saying there has to be a better way. Well, for the last decade, this thing has been kicked around. and no one's come up with a better way. And I know there's been some bright people that have sat in the same seats that we're sitting in today. But if they couldn't come up with a better way in 2000 or in 95 or in 2005 or 2010, then there isn't a better way to come up with it. Because one of the things we've done is we continually allowed ourselves to put a Band-Aid on a festering sore. We put a Band-Aid on a festering sore, hoping that if we close our eyes that it was going to heal on its own. But the only thing we've done is created an infection that has spread throughout this community, an infection of poverty, an infection of not being accountable fiscally, an infection that bleeds us completely to the point that we've been considered the only dying city and the poorest county. So at some point, it's got to be some skin in the game. The best comment I've heard all night is that everybody needs to have some skin in the game. I own a business, I own property, I love Palatka, and I can tell you, I go to church and I do mission work. And so it's nothing about the church. I would love to see the same energy that should have been at the meeting we had 2 weeks ago when we talked about violence in our community from the church. But I didn't get the walls packed. So, but I love the church, and I think the church has to be the center of what we do in this community. It has to be more than just showing up when you got a vested interest in the outcome. That's what has to happen. We're sitting here, we're all poor, we're all hurting. But in order to provide programming, in order to provide other things necessary for this community to move forward, we've seen all the cuts in the world. We've cut recreation, we've cut programs, we've cut rehab, we've cut re-entry, we've cut all those things. That same list of programs that churches do, the city's cut. We've cut a lot of different things as it relates to citizens, and we've put them towards projects. There's been mismanagement and misappropriation and losses as it relates to some of the investments that have been made in this community. But today is the day that we have an opportunity to move forward and to change things in Palatka. Yep. Today is an opportunity for us to start to work towards doing something totally different. No more just raising the millage rate with no answer for how we're going to reduce it in order to make it offset. I've looked back in the past at the records and $681,000 increases in millage, $1.3 million increases in millage resulted in us increasing the water bill at the same time. So now we're talking about immediately decreasing the millage rate to 6.99, the first time a millage rate has been dropped that low in over 15 years. It's an opportunity for us to move forward when we start doing things. Yeah, it's a $2.46 per relative value of $1,000 on the parcels, but we're also talking about trying to reduce the millage rate even more the second year, which gives everybody a decrease. It's so many things out there that can be done, but for a decade, people have been talking about, oh, there's got to be a better way. I haven't seen it. There's a whole bunch of talk. It's once been said that you can talk until your mouth fries chicken, but until you do something, it's nothing going to go on. So we can talk all day long about what needs to be done, but what's happening while we're talking and kicking the can is this city's dying, and we're one storm away from bankruptcy. If that storm turns into a hurricane, we're in trouble, and it won't just be FEMA that's going to be needed to come in here. So Palatkans have to step up to the plate. The church has to step up. I cannot understand for the life of me why the church, which is vested in this community, does not feel like it needs to be vested in this city. That is to me, I just don't get it. I love the church, but the church needs to put some skin in the game when it comes to what we're doing right now with the city of Palatka. The only way that we are going to be able to move forward is collectively. This has nothing whatsoever to do with trying to hurt the church, trying to hurt programs, trying to do any of that. It has to do with survival. This city has to survive. And the one thing that I pledge to do while I'm sitting in this seat, I don't have all the answers, but I love this community, and I will not sit back and lie dormant and allow this community to go bankrupt. People have come in and looked at our community and said that we're in a state of financial disrepair. But the devil is a liar. We have an opportunity right now to change things. So if it's going to take every church that's here today to step up to the plate and help us out, we need your help. If it's going to take that, we need your help. Not begrudgingly, but we need your help. Because everybody's in there together. The Bible simply says, the Bible says it better than I could ever say it. The Bible says, surrender unto Caesar. And we are not Caesar, but that's what the Bible says when it talks about taxes. The Bible addresses taxes in red letters. We're not Caesar by any form. But the Bible says, render unto Caesar what's due Caesar. So though it says to the church that if you've been ordered to pay taxes or asked to pay taxes, then pay what's due. We're not Caesar by any form. But the Bible says that. Thus says the Lord. We talk about it. No one's gone and kicked in the doors when the county increased the fire fee. No one came out in Groves then. No one came out in Groves when we talked about when the state sends fees to the church to keep their nonprofit status on an annual basis. When you got to send in annual reports, sometimes you got to pay. Sometimes you got to pay, and it may not necessarily be popular, but we got to do something in order for this community to survive. The best thing I heard was from Reverend Tanner, which said that we got to have skin in the game. We got to have skin in the game. Everybody has to be involved. You may not like what's being proposed. You may not like at the levels, but it's an opportunity for us to start working on repair. So at the end of the day, we all got to dig down deep and go. I got a small business. I'm 15 years in, and I struggle like everybody else does. But I don't mind putting some money in the pot if it's going to help this city get better. Because right now, it's real hard to go to citizens and say, we're not doing this because we don't have it. We're not doing that because we don't have it. That's the reality of what's going on right now. We don't have money to function on a regular basis. It's a fair and equitable remedy to include a fire assessment fee for everybody. If the churches weren't involved in this, and I asked this question to a pastor before, if there wasn't the churches involved in the fire assessment fee, or the possibility that the churches would actually be assessed a fee as it related to what's going on, would they be in the audience? And the answer was no. It wasn't about the people. It was about the church. We've got a lot of churches that have been engaged in big business outside of what's kingdom work. And so they're engaged in big business. And I think that there has to be a distinction between growth of the church and the ministry and doing things for a gain, for a financial gain. Those are two different things. And so for me, I believe that the assessment has to be in place for the churches. And I think Reverend Hannah had the best suggestion that I've heard all day. Is there anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, may I have that minute from you?
No, sir.
Please? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, are we looking at then, is the commission looking at a reduction rather than 2.4?
The motion is on the floor for the motion is on the floor for the resolution as it's written at 246 and 125 per parcel. So
would we let the city manager, let the people, or Matt, tell folks why we got to that number to put on there? I'm not happy with it either because I got to pay it too. But can you tell us why that amount was put on the amount to pay?
I can tell you. I can tell you because I came up with the number. And the number came about from looking at what we had in the budget, where we were to deal with the fire assessment, to deal with the fire department. How could we reasonably fund the fire department to be able to fully fund it in the second year, to put us in a position where we could get the maximum millage reduction for the citizens.
Now, I have a question. With you saying that you came up with the number, wasn't that something that was supposed to come before? With you coming up with the number, and this is just a point of clarification, was that not something that was supposed to come before the commission as a whole to come up with that number, and then we move forward, or did you have the authority to make that number?
In order to bring the proposal forward, there was conversations with Mr. Lawson and his crew. And what was supposed to be done was to bring forward a proposal to the commission that would put us in the most favorable light. And that was what was done.
And that's what we did.
And so what we brought forward was something which would allow us to get the maximum millage reduction for the citizens. And so, any other questions?
There's something else that if people who have properties are actually in hardship, there is a mechanism in this that they can come and bring it to our city manager. Is that who they bring it to?
Yes, ma'am.
And with the criteria he has, he can see if you qualify to get it reduced or whatever else you need to have done. So there is a mechanism for those folks that cannot do it. And I will be pushing for whoever the gentleman was, that Mr. Eubanks, I will be pushing to ask the school board and all the county buildings downtown to do the same thing, because they need the same fire protection that everybody else does, and you've been a county commissioner, so you know how that'll be. But we will be asking that we have, them do something to help us to maintain that. And y'all fussing, but the county has put fire, has had a fire fee out there for a little while.
I'm gonna ask, while we're in discussion, I'm gonna ask, that we consider a 50% reduction in the fee for the churches.
How much?
A 50% fee, in reduction for the churches. I know the motion's on the floor, but, I guess I would ask you.
We'll withdraw it. You want us to withdraw it?
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask you, would you be willing to consider a 50% reduction for the churches?
Get the rest of the commission work?
Well, for the institutions as a whole.
As a whole.
How can we go from 75% to?
It's not, we're at 100.
It was 100.
So we're not talking about what we spoke about the last commission meeting?
With 25?
The 25.
25.
But her motion wasn't at 25. Her motion was at 100%. So that's the clarity. And so the motion's on the floor for 100%. I would ask that we be at 50%. But it would have to be based on your motion.
I will modify my motion to say 50%.
I think what you're gonna have to
Can-
do is
Withdraw your motion and restate it.
Okay, let me ask you a question. That's not doing anybody but the churches?
No, that's all institutions.
Okay. So because if we do it for one, we
You have
have
to
to
do
do
it
it
for
for
all.
everybody else. Can I have a list of the institutions that it's going to do so everybody will know what we're talking about? Read them all. Read them all.
Well, you want to read the actual institutions or the types of institutions?
The types of institutions that will get a break?
That's everything.
The types of institutions are those that are in section 3.06, which they're classifications, and they're described as vacant institutional, churches and temples, private schools and colleges, privately owned hospitals, homes for the aged, mortuary, cemetery, and crematorium, clubs, lodges, and union halls, sanitarium, convalescent, and rest home, and cultural organization facilities would be the types of institutions that can either be exempt or not, depending upon your ordinance, your resolution at this point.
All right, I will withdraw my motion and say 50% for those that are in that category.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion?
Who seconded that motion?
Commissioner Ward.
Okay, so the motion is to pass the resolution, except that those institutions specified in section 3.06 would be assessed at a 50% rate. Is that correct?
Yes.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell?
No.
Commissioner Norwood?
No.
Mayor Hill?
Yes, motion carries 3-2. Moving on to item 4B, note resolution.
A resolution of the City of Palatka, Florida, authorizing the issuance of its fire service assessment revenue note, series 2015, in the principal amount of not to exceed $45,950.69, to fund the acquisition or construction of certain capital improvements and equipment of the city, providing that the series 2015 note shall be a limited obligation of the city, payable solely from certain special assessments as provided herein, providing for the rights and remedies for the owner of the Series 2015 note, making certain covenants and agreements in connection therewith, and providing for an effective date.
So moved.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second by Commissioner Borum. We'll now open the floor for public hearing. Allegra Kitchens, please come forward.
No use beating a dead horse. I withdraw my request to deny this.
Thank you. We'll now close public hearing. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Brown? Commissioner Campbell?
No.
Commissioner Norwood?
No.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Mayor Hill?
Yes, motion carries by a vote of 3-2. Moving on to item number 5 on the agenda, discussion and direction. Department of Economic Opportunity, Economic Development Grant Application for Restaurant and Ship Stores. Recommendation to withdraw with intent to reapply.
That's on the agenda for discussion only.
It's for discussion and direction.
I would like to see us reapply for it.
Yeah, I think, for me, I think in light of things that have taken place beyond our control.
Hold on, please. Can you hold it down, please?
I think we can I proceed?
Continue.
Okay. In light of things that has happened and that has transpired beyond our control, I think it would be in our best interest to go ahead and withdraw and reapply.
Where we are,
Would you speak up, please?
before we get there, Paul Smith, come forward for me.
Thank you. I know where you're at, and I think I know where you're going. But I just wanted to say a couple things. I got 3 minutes, I'm gonna talk fast. I come down from my house on President Street, and I go down 13th Street, I believe is the name of the road. And I go down towards John and Stanley's at Designs, and I see 4 warning stop signs telling me there's a stop sign ahead. Seems like with this ordinance, this thing that y'all are doing.
Are you gonna talk about the?
Yes, I am.
We're talking about the restaurant and the ship store.
I am. I'm right there with you.
We'll drive the train in the right direction.
You see the stop signs. When stop signs get put in front of you,
What do stop signs have to do with the ship store?
because the ship store, a lot of hurdles have come your way that show you stop signs from the Palatka Daily News saying you need to stop this thing, you don't need to do it. People that come in here, you don't see people banging down the doors for restaurants trying to get in here. I don't see the need for this at all. You violated your own ordinance from the churches, thank you for sticking around, from the churches, violated the own ordinance that the city has for having places that consume alcohol within 300 feet of a church. So, stop.
That's good. Appreciate you reading our mind. So back to what we were saying before. Any other comments from the commission? Where we are, and this thing for me has become increasingly alarming. I think the Department of Economic Opportunity has concerns as well, the same concerns that we have as it relates to the individuals who are associated, the organizations associated with this particular project. I think it's time for the commission as a whole to give direction for us to stop, to send this, to pull back from where we are, to go ahead and to look at this, to go ahead and withdraw our application, to readjust it so that we've got the people in place necessary to move forward, and we've done the things to make sure that this project moves in the right direction. And so we need direction from the commission as to where we go from here. The recommendation is to withdraw this application and to deal with it from an entirely different perspective. I think that there have been too many issues concerning Nippers and where they are from a financial standpoint. It puts the city in a bad position, and we need to really look at that.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with you, but I guess my question would be then, if we're going to revisit, we're going to put out an RFP so that we will have everybody that thinks that they may want to put a restaurant there, to have that opportunity?
That's the purpose.
I'm asking the question.
Go ahead.
Obviously, I know that it's on the agenda tonight for discussion, and maybe all the discussion can't happen tonight. I would just mention to you that certainly it's understandable that that with, as the mayor indicated, events that we've all read about concerning the Nippers, which was a participating party in the grant application. And as we talked earlier, if you change that participating party, the grant could not proceed forward because the restaurateur was one of the significant features of the grant app. So you couldn't just plug them out and plug another one in and go forward with the same grant. At least that's what we're advised by DEO. My understanding is that with the situation that's transpired with Nippers, the city's thinking about whether or not it's wise to move forward with them as a participating party, which would necessarily mean you'd have to pull back on the grant app. But before you decide to totally throw out the RFP process, I think that there's going to have to be some consideration given to the fact that you've got another participating party that may very well feel that they've invested a lot of time and money in this process. So what you ultimately do, obviously, is your business, but if the discussion is going that way, I would simply ask that you maybe give it some more thought, maybe have another discussion at a different time about whether or not you're going to totally throw out the RFP and start over again, because I know from discussions, negotiations, conversations that I've been directed to hold that other participating party feels like he has, as to quote a phrase that's been used here tonight, a lot of skin in the game already. So if the RFP were thrown out and you try to start over again, you might have an issue in that regard.
So, and I agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Holmes. I think that what we need to look at doing is withdrawing our grant application with the intent to reapply with Boathouse Marina, Palaca Boathouse Marina as one of the participating parties, but there needs to be proper vetting done to bring in a second participating party to deal specifically with the restaurant. I wholeheartedly don't believe that the participating party that's in there right now is going to be able to serve the interests and the purposes of what this particular project was for and how it helps the city.
Mayor, is there a deadline for us to get in the next application? Because they have deadlines for the grants that we do.
Well, the cycles usually come around every quarter, so we've got a couple cycles. If we can go ahead, and my suggestion is that we tonight, that we go ahead and we can direct staff to withdraw the application with the intent to reapply with one of the participating parties, and that gives us time to move forward from there. And so I think that's the best course of action as to where we are now. I think the conversations and the concerns surround one party, not both. And I think that we need to kind of move forward from there and address the other issues as they come.
So you want a consensus from us whether or not to,
We need a motion.
We need direction, we need action.
you've already,
I mean, I make the motion to withdraw the application. And, can we do that at a time? Can we do, I make the motion to withdraw the application, give staff the recommend staff to withdraw the application with the one party, and let's move forward at a later time.
With Boathouse Marina?
With Boathouse Marina, and let's
Second.
move forward.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
The only question that I have is how would we proceed in replacing the second party that was named in the grant?
RFP, without another.
How would we do it?
Wait a minute, no, because the city attorney just talked to us, just told us about there's somebody else that already has skin in the game. He's been before this commission as well.
He was talking,
Marina.
right.
The marina. Actually, the way your RFP was structured, and the city manager, if I'm jumping in ahead of you.
Yes, sir, you're fine.
But the way your RFP was structured, the Boathouse Marina, and I don't remember, I may be using the right name for them, but Mr. Legacy's operation, and he may have formed a separate entity, it was the party that you basically were going to enter into negotiations and a contract with. He then was going to deal with a restaurateur, and the contract between the restaurateur, or the contract with the restaurateur, was actually going to be between he and Boathouse Marina. So as my understanding, that he basically brought Nippers to the table, and then they became a participating party. Once they are named as a participating party in the grant app, then they're sort of set in stone for that grant app. But my understanding is that the respondent to our RFP was Boathouse Marina. and they went from there.
All right. That answers my question. I call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 6 on the agenda, recommended action regarding the planning board decision in PB case number 15-05, 15-052. Mr. Holmes.
I'll be brief and then answer any questions that you'd like and provide whatever explanation you'd like. Briefly, as I believe you are all aware, the city had made a conditional use application to allow a facility serving alcoholic beverages within 300 feet of a church. The application was in order to allow a restaurant, which at that time was proposed to be Nippers, to locate its riverfront development. The first application was, and this, I know this is a detail, but it's important to my explanation. The application was numbered 15-05, 2015-05. It was considered by the planning board, and it failed on a tie vote, and went forward. I believe it was a tie vote. It failed. Tie vote is a fail. And the city then appealed that decision to the city commission. City staff appealed the city commission. There was then a hearing held on February 25th of 15. I'm sorry?
Did they appeal this planning board, not the city commission, right?
They appealed the planning board decision to the city commission.
Right.
The city appealed that original 15-05 conditional use application, which failed at the planning board level. The city staff appealed that to the city commission. It was never heard. Because in the meanwhile, a new agenda and a new notice of hearing was published for a hearing to take place on February 25th of 2015 with what was supposed to be and described as a substantially different application. The planning board met on February 25, and at that point, question arose about the fact that the case number of what was agended was the same case number as the case that had previously been considered by the planning board and defeated, 15-05. The agenda which was published had a case number. The agenda which was published for the February 25 meeting, the second meeting, had a case number of 15-05, just as the earlier case had. The notice that was in the paper notifying the public of the meeting had a case number 15-05. So the original case was 15-05. The agenda for the new case was 15-05. It listed it as 15-05, and the publication in the paper advertising the February 25 meeting was 15-05. Same case. When it came to the planning board, who, from my perspective in this, to the extent that I form an opinion about these things, was totally blameless in this scenario, had a question about the fact that it was the same number. Planning staff advised that that was a scrivener's error, that it was a substantially different application, a new application which was different substantially from the original application which was on appeal. Assuming that in fact that was the case, I offered the opinion that if in fact it was a new application, substantially different from the first, there was nothing in our code to prevent it being considered, and the fact that it had a case number that had been assigned by error would not be fatal to the process. A citizen attempted to appeal to the city commission. I offered the opinion, which I have in the past and will stand by, that a citizen whose interest does not differ from that of the public in general does not have standing to appeal a conditional use decision on its merits. And I believe that case law still supports that. That citizen then filed suit in circuit court questioning the procedures utilized by the planning board and specifically, or by the planning staff, and specifically the issue of advertisement and notice. I inquired of staff about advertisement and notice and was advised that it was properly advertised and noticed. But in preparation to defend the lawsuit and file the answer on the city's behalf, I asked for documents and received documents and reviewed documents, and this is what I found. Bottom line is, as of the time notice of the February 25 hearing was published in the paper, there was no application on file in the city offices, no new application on file for conditional use at this site at issue. The new application was ultimately filed, but it's dated February 23rd, 2015, which is 2 days before the hearing. Our code requires 15 days notice of an application, of a hearing. And our code requires that every application for conditional use be in writing, period. So while apparently there was direction to staff to move forward with an application, that application didn't get filed until 2 days before the hearing. That fact was never brought out at the Planning Commission meeting. And maybe to add to the issues and concerns, when that application was filed, it was filed under case number 15-05-2. So it actually had a separate number from the 1505. It didn't have the number that was published in the agenda. It didn't have the number that was noticed in the paper. It had a number 15-05-2. Even when discussion came up at the hearing about the fact that the numbers were the same, it wasn't pointed out by staff that the numbers really weren't the same, that the new number was 15-05-2. I can't tell you when the new number got assigned. As best I can determine, it was assigned sometime between the time of sending the agenda or the notice to the paper for publication and the time that the application was actually filed on February 23rd, sometime in that time frame. But city staff advised me that they did create a file that was numbered 15-05-2 before the planning board hearing of March 25th. Now, it all boils down to notice for me. Yes, there was something published in the paper that said there was going to be a hearing on February 25th. But what was published said it was going to be for the purpose of hearing 15-05. The only 1505 that existed as of the time that paper publication was made was the application that was on appeal to the city commission. If a citizen had come to city offices and asked for a copy of the application that was going to be heard on the 25th, they couldn't have been provided a copy of the application until February 23rd, because that's when it existed. In my opinion, that violates both the spirit and the intent of our notice requirement. And because of that, and even though technically I could fight, attorneys can always fight, I can always find something to say in opposition to the lawsuit that was filed. But I think that you share with me the opinion that cities shouldn't fight unless they think they're right, especially when they're dealing with taxpayers' dollars and they're fighting a citizen that's using their dollars. So from my perspective, I'm recommending that the council move to declare to set aside the decision that the planning board made. And again, I'll reiterate again, this is not a criticism of the planning board. They asked the right question, or they asked the question about the confusion. I don't know how anyone would have known to ask about case number 15-05-2, because other than, I guess, a couple people in the city planning staff, I don't know who knew that existed, that that number existed.
And just for the record, this is being handled as an emergency item on the agenda. It wasn't advertised when we initially put this stuff out. But once we received that information today, we felt that it was necessary for us to come in here to the commission and make the statement to get the recommendation, because that's not the way that we conduct business, and we will not be violating our own rules.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we handle item 6 as an emergency item.
So, there's a motion for and a second. We're going to call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
I move also that we accept the city attorney's recommendation as well.
Second. There's a motion and a second on the floor by Commissioner Campbell. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Moving on to item number 7 on the agenda, discussion of Farm to Family Outreach Program. Is there anyone here from Farm to Family? Ms. Freeman.
evening.
State your name for the record, and name and address.
Betsy Freeman, 131 Underwood Drive, Blackened. I'm here today as a representative and volunteer for Farm to Family, which is an outreach program out of Hastings. Right now, they are active in St. John's, Flagler, and Duval counties. This is a program that has proven to be successful. What they are is it is a mobile farmers market. They are working under USDA grants for low poverty, low income neighborhoods, city, as well as rural communities. Right now, one of the grants that they have is actually a FENA grant, which is a dollar for dollar matching for EBT and SNAP benefits cards. This basically this program is, we'd like to bring it to Palatka proper first, Palatka City. Today what we're asking for is basically the use of the facilities parking lot of the Price Market Center. This would be a reoccurring event. Right now we're looking at Mondays, starting September 14th. It would be starting in the afternoon. It would be about a 2-hour period. Like I said, this is a mobile farmers market, so it's one truck, 28 feet long, come in, stay for 2 hours. We use our own volunteers, try to walk the community, flyers, get community involvement from other businesses. It's self-contained. What we're asking today really is just the use of Price Market Center parking lot.
Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I guess is city staff available to, I'd like to just ask questions about what's required for mobile vendors within the community.
Mr. Crow here. Mr. Crow here.
When's our next meeting? When's our next meeting?
September 10th, is it?
When's our next meeting?
I believe it's September 10th.
If you want to give me a few minutes, I can probably find what I can.
And just so you know, I don't necessarily have a problem with them doing it, but I want to make sure that we don't violate our own code, but also I've got some other questions as well. Are you guys selling produce at a reduced rate? And
It is. It's a reduced rate. It's also local sourced. That's part of the program. So a lot of it's out Hastings specifically, but it's North Florida. It's at a reduced rate. Basically what the program revolves around is bringing nutrition value produce to places that don't have it. They're food deserts. Basically all of Palatka is a food desert, according to the USDA. So we'd like to start with like the Price Market Center. That's a good hub. We've got, if we do it in the afternoon, we've got 2 schools, neighborhoods right there that we're within walking distance, as well as our main hub highway-wise. So not only do they have reduced benefit or reduced prices for what they're offering, but with the EBT and SNAP cards, it's a match dollar for dollar grant that they're working under right now. So if you go and spend $20, you're getting $10 of produce for free.
So you issue a card to the people who will come to get the...
If they bring their EBT cards, if they're not already under their SNAP benefits through EBT, we will help them to sign up and give them the information. But it's all through the EBT program.
So they pay half of what
Yes,
they
ma'am.
were
Basically, if
ordinary.
they come the first Monday and they spend $10, they come the next Monday and they get $10 for free on top of whatever else they would like to buy.
If, Mr. Mayor, if I may, it sounds like an absolutely wonderful program and something any and all of us would want to participate with this program within the city of Palatka. We got some questions here. We don't have the appropriate staff here tonight. I would suggest that council would allow us to vet this out properly. I believe our next meeting, Ms. Betsy, is September 10th. We can bring back a staff report at that time. vetting this out, and that way we can make sure that we're all on the same page with this request, and hopefully we'll be able to move forward with it then.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I see it under PBG 1, but that, I don't see it under PBG 1, which is government buildings, but there may be an exception somewhere.
Let's look at it. Good
It was
question.
just a discussion.
It's a discussion item. Item number 8 on the agenda, Mr. Suggs.
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe I have anything tonight, if that's okay with you.
Chief? Chief? Mr. Jonathan Griffith?
You didn't put it down.
Commissioner Campbell?
No, sir, thank you. Thank you everyone for coming up.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Bora?
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Norwood?
Did we get a chance to look at that light on M Street yet? M Street and Queen?
We've discussed it. I'll find out from my folks this week. I'll check tomorrow and make sure. But,
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
I would like to see us contact our
That's fine. We thank everybody for coming out tonight. And there's an the one thing I see out of this is an opportunity for us to all mobilize as a community. A lot of pressing issues as we relate to this community. Just recently, we had six shootings, a murder, multiple robberies, a stabbing. And those are all pressing issues that we have. I'm tired of looking at the news and seeing Palatka be at the forefront of violence. I'm tired of our kids not having anything to do in this community. I'm tired of our citizens always being called the poorest and the lowest as it relates to everything that's going on. While I know some of the issues that we discussed today may not have left everybody with a good taste in your mouth, we're still Palatkans. And at the end of the day, we're a small community with a lot of pride. And with that being said, I encourage and I invite you to come back because it does good for us to see a full room of people. Oftentimes decisions are made and there's only 1 or 2 people in here who come in and voice their opinion. But to know that the community is willing to step up and come in and have their voice be heard, that's what this is all about. Decisions can't be made by an island at all, but it takes a community together to be able to move forward. So I know this decision today wasn't very popular with a lot of people, but we're entrusting that what we do, and we pray that what we do is done for the better good of this community. It's not done to hurt anybody. It's not done because we don't feel like the churches or anyone else is not doing their fair part in making this community better. The church is the center. It's the center of this community. But we all have a part to play. There have been years where we just have not gotten the results that we deserve. And it's time for us to call a new day. It's time for us to move forward and to start moving in agreement towards something different. So I thank everybody for coming in here in your respective places. I thank you for your comments. I thank you for allowing this meeting to be held with dignity and with decorum, that there wasn't people coming up and there wasn't anger from any side. And I just thank everybody for that part, because that means a lot when we're dealing with an issue as contested as this issue. But I also want us to move forward. We've got to clean up on August 29th for Palatka Pride. We'll be over at the park on 10th and Madison, and we want to try to make that place much better and much safer for our young people. We've got some community partners that'll be in place. Calvary Baptist Church is going to be the team leader for that particular project, and we're trying to make Palatka a better place for all. So with that being said,
Before you close.
okay. With that being said, I just think that we just all need to move forward.
And one last thing, we had that forum around crime, and we would like this same energy as it relates to protecting our citizens. So within the next couple of weeks, we will be putting together a task force, and we would like to have you guys to come out and participate in that as well. So again, we thank you for coming out. I turn it back over to you.
Mr. Mayor, may I close this in prayer as we get ready to leave?
You must be reading my mind, because I was asking for a benediction on this one.
Let me pray for us.
Yes, sir.
Father, thank you for this time to be assembled in this place, because we know in our heart
that, Father, you have ordained government. And Father, this city has elected these people. This city has entrusted their confidence and their faith in this people to do the very best that they can to lead this city out of the dumps, out of its problems, and to make this city a place that we can all love and we can all be proud of. And Father, we ask that you guide each and every person that is in this room tonight. And Father, guide them in each step of life. Show them, Father, what you would have them to do for their families, for this city, and for you and your kingdom. Watch over us and guide us, I pray. Father, even right now, prepare us in our heart to be in our respective places of worship and to meet with you there. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Motion to adjourn. Back in